Boy, Blackbeard, man, you know what time it is. I'm back. What I'm gonna do in this tape is we're gonna deal with some more North American history, but now we're gonna turn our direction in the southeast regions of North America. So in the southeast regions of North America is where we're about to be looking in this tape right now, okay? So in the so-called areas of Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, etc. All right, that's what we're looking at. So if you have a mother or a father that have origins in these regions, then this history will pertain to you, and more than likely this is going to be probably over 90% of you, because even if a lot of you are in the Northeast, in the tribes that they may have called the Seneca or the Iroquois, or even some of the people, let's say in the middle of the North America, in the so-called areas of what they Chicago, Illinois, Michigan, etc. But either way it goes, a lot of us were migrating around, and we came from these greater empires known as the Incan and the Mayan empires. All right, so we've been here for quite a while. We've been moving around, the whole entire Americas, from South, Central, and North America. We've been doing a lot of moving around. And what happens is that, the current day tribes that we know of and the names that we know of, these just are the remnants and the leftovers of basically greater kingdoms and greater families of people that were on these American continents in the super ancient worlds. So you'll see a little bit more what I mean about that. For example, when I was looking into some of the Blackfoot Aborigine history, I was seeing that the Blackfoots were basically an amalgamated tribe of a lot of other indigenous ancient peoples on North American soils. So, we may be saying a particular tribe name, but, this tribe may be made up of, let's say, 4 or 5 other indigenous melanated tribes that were in the ancient worlds, and they all just basically condensed themselves into these modern people. So I may be walking around, let's say, as Blackbeard, the Blackfoot Aborigine today, but I may be made up of, like 7 different ancient Aboriginal tribes that were in North America that, came from, let's say, the Mayan Empire, or the leftover people from the Peruvian Empire when they moved out of there from the Spanish invasions and stuff like that. So that's what a lot of our people were doing when they had these different European so-called conquests, and we would go to war and stuff like that. Some of our people would stay in that area and keep going to war, and then some of our people would leave and move around. So in these greater empires of the Mayan and the Incan, when it was being attacked, this is what was happening. Also, too, keep this in your mind. When we think of the Mayan and Incan Empire, too, we may not necessarily want to just think about, South America and so-called Mexico. You may even want to go ahead and put in the southeast part of North America and probably on up into the northeast part where so-called New York and all that is. Because, from a lot of what I'm looking at, the Mayan and the Incan and what we call even the Olmec, this super ancient empire, was literally the entire Americas. So now, I'm personally understanding a little bit more why this place is named Amaru Maru, and the entire Central America, North America, and South America, they all go by America, basically. So it kind of has the same concept as Egypt or Israel, how you would have Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, or Upper Israel and Lower Israel. Basically the upper kingdoms and the lower kingdoms, just the two halves of the family, basically. And that's what's going on here in America. So I'm going to read on this website called peopleofOneFire.com/origins of the Yamasee identified. That's the name of the website. And I'm basically just going to read about the origins of the Yamasee. This person wrote it. And what we'll do is just go through some of these tribes and just talk about this stuff and connect it with the history that we already know. The origins of the Yamasee identified. There was a connection of the Yamacutah site relevant to the histories of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. First thing, we got this word Yamacutah. Now, you remember in the last tape when I talked about Utah, being another word for Utah or Judah. All right, showing you that ancient Aboriginal link to Hebrew-speaking people in the Americas. Okay, so the Yamasee and this word Yamacutah have a connection, so keep that in mind. So it's showing you the Judah connection even in the southeast of North America. So yes, Utah is in the west, but these same people even are in the southeast. And once again, like I said, the relevant histories of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. So if you're in any of these places, this is, your history. It says, some of you are so brilliant that I have started calling you Sonny. Chief Brenda Red Crow Webb, Grand Matriarch of the Yamasee Indian tribe, who wrote me several interesting emails in response to the brain food article on Tikasi Miko. She is a descendant of Tukasi Miko, aka so-called John Hicks. So basically, it's this person's, writing an article, I guess, That connection has great significance. Contemporaries of Tukasi Miko said that his tribe spoke a language that was different from the Hitchiti and Muskogee spoken by Seminoles. Although living in Madison County, Florida in the early 1800s, the tribe previously lived in southeast Georgia, where they were grouped with several other ethnic groups into the labels Yamasee and Yamacraw. Before that period, they obviously lived in the Tuckasegee River Valley of North Carolina. So what we have here is we're dealing with some Aboriginal tribes in the regions of Madison County, Florida, and they go by the Hitchiti and Muskogee spoken people of the Seminoles. So clearly these are languages, okay? So the Muskogee and the Hitchiti and Muskogee, these are different languages of the Seminoles. But in a minute, you're going to see that these Seminoles basically are the sons and daughters of the ancient Yamasee. So when you hear this word Yamasee and Yamacraw, those also go together. And then it says before that period, they previously lived in the Tuckasegee River Valley of North Carolina. So clearly you can see that, the ancestors between Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia, southeast Georgia, are connected, okay? And a lot of these different words are the languages that these tribes are speaking. But as far as the ethnicity, these are all of the same so-called people, what we would call today so-called black people. But anyway, anthropological orthodoxy is that the Yamasee are extinct. The name Yamasee comes from Muskogee. No one knows for certain what language they spoke, only that they originated in southeast Georgia. So for all my people that's from Georgia, we got a mom and dad from Georgia. The Yamasee or Yamacraw originate in southeast Georgia. No one can figure out Yamacraw yet either, but all Yamacraw names have Itza Maya etymologies. Perhaps they were Maya speaking within the Apalache Confederacy. Okay, so the Yamacraw and the Yamasee and the Yamacraw names have Itza Maya etymology. So when they do the etymology on some of these indigenous Yamacraw names of Georgia, they have Maya etymology. And it says that perhaps they were a Maya speaking people of the Apalache Confederacy. So the Apalache Confederacy clearly were some people that probably were the remnant of the Mayan Empire, still speaking Mayan languages. All right. And they were even in southeast Georgia. It says the Yamasee were known to be quite skillful in warfare. They painted their faces black for battle. The Tupi-speaking people encountered by the French Huguenots on the coast of Georgia painted their faces red for battle. They were enemies of the provinces within the interior. Now, let me go back to something that I talked about a few weeks ago when I dealt with the black and red temples of Atlantis. And I talked about how black and red are the color of the Aboriginal. Now, notice here it says that these Yamasee of Georgia were quite skillful in warfare, and they painted their faces black for battle. And the Tupi-speaking people encountered by the French Huguenots on the coast of Georgia painted their faces red for battle. So the Tupi-speaking Aboriginals of Georgia and the Yamasee Aboriginals of Georgia both painted their faces black and red for battle. So now you see this whole connection of the black and red to the indigenous American. All right. Because you will see a lot of pictures of Aboriginals, and a lot of times they do have their faces colored, in different colors. But if you look at a lot of the wars, like look real close at a lot of the indigenous war pictures when they show the so-called Indians fighting against the United States or the French or the Spanish or whoever, and look at the colors of a lot of the paint on the face. A lot of the times it'll either be black or red, or it'll be both colors. But you see that combination. So for all the brothers from Georgia was wearing the black and red on their face when they went to war. Now you understand why the Georgia Bulldogs, the college football team, the Georgia Bulldogs, what color do they wear? They wear black and red, don't they? So all these things basically ancestrally come back around. All right, the black and red of Georgia. So let's keep going. We can provide an alternative meaning for Yamasee. Yamasee also means offspring of Yama. Yama is the Creek name for the Mobilian trade jargon and also the advanced people who lived around the Bottle Creek mounds on the Mobile River in Alabama. Perhaps their ethnic names later became an adjective. Yama in Totonac means an agricultural clearing cut out of a forest. Finally, Chief Red Crow, please pinch yourself to see if you are extinct. So, the meaning of Yamasee means offspring of Yama. Okay, Yama is the Creek name for the Mobilian trade jargon, also the advanced people who lived around the Bottle Creek mounds on the Mobile River in Alabama. So here we have that Yamasee, okay, is the name of course, the Aboriginals of Georgia. But this name, Yamasee, has a connection and means offspring of Yama. But Yama is a Creek name. So it's showing you that the Yamasee Aborigines and these Creek Aboriginals you're going to see in a minute, they going to have a connection. Okay. But this name Yama and Yamasee goes back to the Aboriginals of the Mobile River in Alabama and the different mounds of Alabama. So this is another thing. So there are a lot of ancient mounds that were in the eastern parts and throughout the North American continent. It's a lot of Aboriginal mounds that are all around us that we don't even notice. But these were the ancestral sites that were created. And we keep looking for these pyramids and we keep looking for these other type of monuments. But maybe here in these Americas, maybe it's so ancient that, or as far as in the southeastern parts of America, because who knows? What if the people went from here and then they traveled into, the areas of what we call, Mexico or whatever, who knows how the exchange went. But the point is that there are a lot of mounds that we need to be trying to look out for, because throughout Georgia, now that I'm thinking about it, just from, when you ride around on the highways and, being from Georgia, I just know the state. There are a lot of mounds that have been either been built around or they kind of made it into something else. But the point is that there are a lot of mounds and things like that we need to look out for. The Biloxi, Apalache, Palachi, and Pacachicola. Biloxi is the French spelling of the French misunderstanding of the word Palachi. The main body of the Apalache lived in the upper Piedmont of north central Georgia. So now we have the Biloxi Aboriginals, which really, Biloxi is the French spelling of the indigenous word Apalache. Okay, so the indigenous word would be the Apalache, and these Apalache Aboriginals were in north central Georgia. Biloxi, Mississippi was just a tiny outpost of this people. So apparently Biloxi, Mississippi is just a tiny outpost, or let's say a small satellite of the major home of these people, which was central Georgia, north central Georgia. Pacachicola means Palachi people in coastal Choctaw. The Creeks originally used Pacachicola and Apalachicola interchangeably. Okay, so basically this word Apalachicola is, dealing with probably another language of some of these indigenous people, even the coastal Choctaw. All right, so even once again, Choctaw, Apalache, Apalachicola, these words are all really interchangeable basically for these same people, part of the same empire, but maybe they just speak different dialects and stuff like that. Okay, so this probably even gonna go into the Hebrew in a different, let's say, ancient Hebrew dialects. It says, so the Apalachicola were once and the same as the Biloxi. Perhaps their language was modified by membership in the Cree Confederacy. There was also a Apalachicola province on the lower Savannah River that the South Carolinians labeled Yamasee. However, there were members of the Cree Confederacy in 1733. Their war chief, Chicolili, presented the history of the Cochiti people to Governor Oglethorpe, written with the Apalache writing system. Yamacutah's stones once contained a writing system unknown to the Anglo-American settlers in northeast Georgia. So what we have right here is that Apalache is an ancient indigenous language that's probably a remnant of the Mayan language, okay? And it is a writing system that the indigenous people of the southeast North Americas, in particular Georgia, were using, okay? Apalache writing system, because it says that that the Cree Confederacy, once again, were just the different Yamasee and probably some of the different Cree Aboriginals of western part of Georgia and of course Alabama and stuff. But they had a confederacy known as the Cree Confederacy, and one of these languages was, of course, the Apalache. And this was a language that was used by the war chief. This war chief was named Chicolili. Okay, and this war chief presented the history of the Cochiti people. And the Cochiti people clearly had to have been who the ancestor were, or another, let's say, indigenous tribe that these southeast aboriginals of so-called Georgia, come from. And they presented this history to the Governor Oglethorpe in Savannah. Now, I know I was going everywhere, but I just kind of wanted to get that shit out. Also, too, we got this word Yamacutah again. Remember, Yama goes back to the indigenous aboriginals of the Battle Creek Mounds in Alabama. Okay. Also, you hear that word Yah in it again. Okay. Which deals with the Hebrew once again. All right. And just think about how the Hebrew deals with, you have the different words of so-called God, but you hear that Yah also come up. Also, you have the goddess energy and the water goddess energy, Yemen Yah. Okay. And then think about how these Yamasee are said to be the sons and daughter of Yama. And Yemaya is also the water goddess, okay? And think about how we were living off of these rivers, all right? Also keep this in mind too. When I talked about the Spanish and how they were, infiltrating through Florida, like it says here that they came across certain aboriginals on the coast of Georgia. A lot of them went into, let's say, the Mayan and Incan Empire, probably through the different rivers of the southeast in particular, depending on where they were at, the more main one, the Mississippi River. And they possibly could have, let's say they came to North America, or let's say they were in North America and went to South America and Central America through North America. Okay, so we thinking that they came from the Atlantic Ocean, went through the Central Americas, stopped at Haiti and all that, and then cut into Peru and Mexico that way. Boom, they could have done it that way. But also keep in mind that that Mississippi River is very, very critical. And just think about how it is almost like, one of the it's like a heart highway of North America. So something about that Mississippi River is very, very critical. And even the word Mississippi, has a lot to do with a lot of other indigenous words. Like you have Mizraim, okay? In the Hebrew, the word in the so-called word Egypt is Mizraim, okay? And you have the Mississippi River, All right, so this MI is something with this MI possibly. The MIS or the MIZ. All right. But anyway, let's keep going. It says that in recent articles, we have discussed that, or the Yamacraw tribe that lived in Savannah Bluff and in northeast Georgia, the Yamacutah and Yamatrahuchi sites on the Oconee River. The Apalache people living on the upper Oconee River called it the Itaho River, which has no known meaning in Muskogee. So that means that in a lot of these more modern languages, so-called Native American languages, some of these indigenous names, they don't have a meaning in that language. So that what's that's going to show you is that they had a more ancient origin, basically, if it can't be translated into any of these things, as this article will point out. So once again, bringing us back to Yamacutah. Okay, you have the Yamacutah, once again, of southeast Georgia. You had that word Utah again, which deals with Judah. All right, do the etymology on Utah. You're going to get the word Yudah, which deals with Judah. So why are they calling it the Yamacutah of so-called Georgia? Why are they calling these aboriginals Judah? Let's keep going. Did you know that the Tuskegee and the Tuskegee, when living in North Carolina mountains, spoke Yamasee? That was stated by a Spanish friar, Diego Peña, in 1716. Several Spanish sources tell us that the Gali or the Wahali also spoke Yamasee. So Yamasee clearly is a language. So let's put that in our head right now, that Yamasee is a language. So when we talk about the Choctaw, the Yamasee, the Apalache, whatever tribe I may say. Once again, these are languages. But when you look at talking about the people, because once again, languages are spoken by people now. You know who these people are and how these people look. They look just like so-called black people of today. So just showing you once again that you didn't come from no land of so-called Africa. You've always been here. So even if you are from Georgia today, you may have been, your folks may have been here once again for the last, probably 3,000 years. You know what I'm saying? And then probably for the previous 20,000 years before that, they may have been goddamn in the area what we call California. And then let's say 50,000 years before that, they was in the area that we call so-called Central America, and maybe let's say 300,000 years before that, they was in the area that we call so-called Peru, so keep it in mind, super ancient people right here in America. So it says that since last summer, Marilyn Ray and I have been struggling with the Native American ethnic names recorded by Rene D. Ladonier when his trade reps visited the interior of southeast and northeast Georgia between 1564 and 1565. Also, the Apalache words recorded by Charles D. Rockford for the Brigstock expedition to the Georgia mountains in 1564. Let me pause real quick. So here in so-called Georgia, we have what's known as Stone Mountain. Here in Georgia, we have what's known as Stone Mountain, where you had the Caucasoid, Zionist-supported, Jewish-supported Confederacy go in, and the different aboriginals of the areas that we call so-called Atlanta were moved around during the times of the Civil War. And in the areas that we call Stone Mountain is very, very critical. And this is why they went and put that big Confederate monument on Stone Mountain. So Stone Mountain is an example of an Aboriginal mound of the Southeast. But anyway, it says that some words such as Pericus for high king are clearly from Peru. Oh, whoa. Some words were also spoken by the Creeks, but also these words were Maya in origin. Other words can be found in a Biloxi dictionary. So here we have the word Pericus, which was clearly part of the Apalache words that were recorded by this guy, Charles Rockford. And these Apalache words were basically the languages that the indigenous people of Southeast and Northeast Georgia were speaking when they were encountered by clearly this is some Spaniard named Rene Ladonier between 1564 and 1565. So why is this Spaniard encountering indigenous people of southeast and northeast Georgia in 1564? Why is he encountering these people who speak a language called Apalache, but this language contains words such as Pericus, which means high king, but this word comes from Peru? So why are people in so-called Georgia, why in their language and dialect do these words go back to Peru? Then it says that the Cree Aborigines, which are in Georgia, had words that are very, very similar and had Maya origins. So why do Cree Aborigines in Georgia and so-called Alabama, why do these languages go back to the Mayan Empire and the kingdoms of the Mayan Empire? It is because the people in the eastern part even of North America were connected to the empires of the Maya and the Incan empires of Mexico and South America. So once again, it was still showing you at some point there was a very, very great connection here and a very, very great unity. But through our ego, through the Yakub experiments, and through a lot of other bullshit we got ourselves into, and then through the tribalism later on, which is why we didn't have a national army. This is what led us to the shit we in today. Because clearly you can see here that the Yamasee, these people, once again, make up North Carolina, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama. And they have different dialects, but they still are all under one nation. Okay? Many Highland Apalache words cannot be translated into any known Southeastern indigenous language. This fact convinced me that the Appalachians' presence in the Southeast predated that of the Muskogeans and may be South America or Central American in origin. The fact that their language seems to have been mixed with Maya and South American words suggests a Central American origin. However, the Maya words may have been introduced by contact or absorption of its state Maya communities. So clearly right here we have the Highland Appalachian words, which are basically the words in the different, we'll say just dialects of the Yamasee various languages. And it says that none of these words really can be translated in the known, probably modern Southeastern Native American languages. So probably these languages that these amalgamated Caucasian Native Americans are speaking. It's saying that these ancient Appalachian words can't be translated into those languages. So it says that this fact convinced this writer that the Appalachian presence in the southeast, parts of Georgia predated the Muskogeans, and maybe that they have origins in Central and South America, which clearly backs up what I just said. So it says that the language system seems to have been mixed with the Mayan and South American words. So this suggests a Central American origin. So like I said, so just because you may be, let's say, an Aboriginal indigenous to the southeast parts of North America, let's say you may have been here for probably, let's say, the last 5,000 years. But your people probably was in Central America 100,000 years before that. So that's why you will find things in the modern culture here correlating with things in Central America. So once again, so if you want to know what is the Egypt of the West, it is the Incan and the Mayan Empire and the Olmec Empire. That is the Egypt of the West. Because those empires basically are the remnants of what we know of as so-called Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. Okay, so when we talk about the Peruvian Empire, the Incan, the Mayan, okay, and the Olmec, those go way back. And a lot of people say that the so-called Olmecs came from the continent known as Africa. These people have been already here. So I'm not saying that it may have not been some people coming from the lands of so-called Europe and Africa, even in the primordial ancient world. So of course there were, but you already had people here. So you may have had the Olmec Empire, including, let's say, indigenous Americans who had already been here for thousands of years. So then, it may have been some other, let's say, Aboriginals who did come here from other parts of the world, and they may have mixed in. And once again, now what I'm talking about now, this could have been 1 million years ago, people. What I'm talking about right now could have been 1 million years ago, 1.3 million years ago. So I'm not talking about no recent thing. So, when I say that we are a super old people, you super old. And you always basically been on the American continent. The region where apparently dialects of High Apalache or Yamasee, that's another thing. When you hear Apalache, think Yamasee, were spoken in the 1500s, correspond to the provinces of Apalachia in 1653 when visited by Mr. Brigstock. By 1701, these Apalachee provinces were shown to be in southeast Georgia. So that's the Apalachee provinces, or the Kingdom of Apalachia, is southeast Georgia. So if we want to know what's one of the indigenous kingdoms of America, it is the Kingdom of Apalachia in southeast Georgia. All right. And clearly, I'm pretty sure this is who the British were encountering. And this is the sons and daughters of the ancient Gauler people, or the Guale, okay, of Georgia. All right. So it says that that these people also are the Yamacraw and the Yamasee. We already talked about that. It says apparently when the colony of Georgia expanded westward in the 1750s, some Yamasee stayed put in southeastern South Carolina, while most Yamacraw and Yamasee moved southward and westward. Those that moved westward joined the Cree Confederacy. Because remember earlier when I was talking about how the Cree Confederacy, you know, some of those languages were mixed in with the Yamasee, because once again, these Aboriginal people, you know, would intermarry with each other and stuff like that. So once again, so that's what I'm saying. So if I'm a Blackfoot Aboriginal today, right, but I may be made of, let's say, the Yamasee when they were traveling, let's say, a little more into, let's say, the western part of Georgia, and they encountered some Creek Aboriginals who always been over in, let's say, the western part of Georgia. So let's say these two tribes intermarried, and they may have created something known as like the Blackfoot or the Seminole. Okay. So you looking at me today as, let's say, a full-blooded Aboriginal man, or so-called black man, as we would say, which is true. But I'm still made of multiple Aboriginal ancient tribes. And that's how we have to see ourselves as a people. You know, you have the blood of billions and billions and billions of souls and billions of ancestors really inside of you. And that's how I see it. It says, apparently when the colony of Georgia expanded westward, like I said, it says some Yamasee stayed in southeast Carolina, while many Yamasee and Yamacraw moved southwest moved more southward and westward. It says those that moved westward joined the Cree Confederacy. When in 1763, Great Britain was awarded Florida from its victory in the 7 Years' War, some Yamacraw and Yamasee moved further south into Florida. They became some of the ancestors of the Seminoles. So as I was saying, so some of these Yamasee and Yamacraw who were in southeast Georgia, basically around, like I was saying, Savannah, Georgia, you know, around the different coast of southeast Georgia, you know, central Georgia, when they were moving around from these different European encounters, some of them went west into what we call Alabama, and they, you know, basically intermarried with the Creek Aboriginals over there. Some of them came south and went into the lands of what we call Florida. All right. And then these people later became what we know of as the Seminoles. All right. So that's what I'm saying. So most likely, most of these modern Aboriginal or so-called Native American tribes that we using today, you got to think that this one tribe is made up of, you know, multiple other indigenous tribes. All right. That's how you have to see yourself. So the tribes of Israel may have started off as, let's say, 9 or 10. OK, but then it multiplied into 12. Then it may have multiplied into 14. Then it multiplied into 18. Then it multiplied into 20. Then it multiplied into 36. You see? So when the Most High told Abraham that your seed will multiply, this is ultimately what we're saying. You know, here in the Americas, it may have started out as being a few, you know, Aboriginal tribes. But after these people move to different areas, you know what I'm saying? You know, and they create more people amongst themselves. Then they go and mix in with other tribes, you know, and then different tribes just kind of move around on their own. You start now having these multiple groups within this one nation, and they all the same people. They just have different languages, let's say, you know. So it's no different than, let's say, a so-called black person from Georgia, so-called black person from California, so-called black person from New York. You know what I'm saying? Some shit like that. It says perhaps the Apalache or Yamasee began moving southward from West North Carolina in response to the arrival of the Sephardic and Middle Eastern settlers in the 1600s. So these Sephardic settlers, once again, are these amalgamated Jews who were settling here in the 1600s, trying to get away from the Spanish Inquisition. So you'll know there was some battles and some conflicts there in North Carolina, the brothers up there. So what we did was just kind of went through the history of basically Georgia and the Southeast Aboriginals, all right, of Georgia. So let's go ahead and go through some stuff and cap it, So the first thing is that the Aboriginals of Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, North Carolina, South Carolina, these Aboriginals are known as the Yamasee, all right? And this connects to the Yamacutah site. So the Utah or the Judah of the west part of North America connects to the Utah or the Yamacutah or the Yamasee of the southeast of North America. So the tribe of Judah is in southeast North America, aka the areas of Georgia, etc. Then it goes on to say that the let's see what I want to go now. And it says that the Aboriginal Yamasee of Georgia painted their face black for war, and the Tupi-speaking Aboriginal Yamasee of Georgia painted their face red. So the Tupi were fighting with the French, and the Yamasee were fighting with basically the same people, okay? And they were also very, very skilled in warfare. So the Aboriginals of the South were skilled in warfare. Now you understand why in the SEC, in the college football, which conference is most dominant in the SEC in college football? I mean, and I just gave the answer away. But basically, in the entire college football league, which division is the most dominant and always wins championships each year and always has a team in the national championship? Isn't it the SEC? This year, wasn't it Alabama versus Georgia? Once again, the Yamasee tribes going against each other. The Cree Aboriginals of Alabama going against the Yamasee of Georgia. So if the SEC is always the powerhouse teams, then this shows, and backs up why these Yamasee Aboriginals of Southeast Georgia were very, very skilled in warfare. So you still see that in our blood and our genetics today. So all the Aboriginal men who are from the South, this is why typically they'll get on your ass. And it's a different type of Aboriginal man that comes from the South. That's why the whole warfare and the type of racism that you have to deal with in the South as a so-called black man is different, because they know who you really are and what they had to deal with you in the Yamasee wars throughout the 1500s and the 1600s and the 1700s. When you had that black and red paint on it, it frightened them. So when they see you with the University of Georgia and you still got that black and red on, sometimes, they have an issue with that. Okay. So also the word Yamasee means offspring of Yama, and Yama is an Aboriginal Creek word. And this Creek word goes back to the advanced mound building people of Alabama. Okay. Also, the word Biloxi is just another word of basically the Apalache people, speaking people of north central Georgia. All right. And even Biloxi, Mississippi, these Aboriginals, a lot of them came from Georgia. Also, just keep that word in your mind, Yamacutah, okay, dealing with the tribe of Judah in Georgia, the Yamacutah of the Savannah River, and the Yamacraw tribe, the Yamacutah, the Yamasee of Georgia, tribe of Judah in Georgia, the Hebrew-speaking people of Georgia. So once again, Yamasee, think of that as a language. Also, the word Pericus, which is basically part of the Apalache word that the Yamasee people spoke. The word Pericus, which means high king. So more than likely, whoever was the big dog, they called him the Pericus. And this word comes from Peru. So the Southeast Aboriginal people of Georgia, so-called Georgia, they had words that came from Peru. So it means clearly some of the Yamasee had ancestors from the Incan and the Mayan Empire. So some of the Aboriginals, so if you are an Aboriginal from, like I said, the Southeast, then you have direct ancestors from the Mayan and the Incan Empire. How can we prove this? Because it shows up in the different indigenous languages that the Spanish and the different Europeans found the native people here speaking. So in the States, so the same people they found in Peru of South America and what they spoke there, They found them speaking the same type of stuff here. And to wrap it up, that the Apalache speaking people of the Southeast, you know, they predate the Muskogeans, and they go back basically to Central and South America. So we may be in the Southeast today, but we really are just a mixture of the Mayan, basically, and Incan people. All right. So it's the boy Blackbeard, man. I just want to drop this history, you know, dealing with Georgia and the South. You know what I'm saying? Some real South shit, man. You know, in the South, we ain't fucking around on none of that shit. We busting heads in the South. You know what I'm saying? We on some real black and red shit in the South, man. So salute to everybody, you know, that's from the South. But it's the boy Blackbeard. Stay tuned. I'm out.